Okay, nothing are getting very serious now. There are so many phones being released at the moment, and I know, having asked you guys in the past if you want me to spend longer on my reviews, that the answer to that is yes, please. However, we do have to do first impressions because that's how you get the views when the embargo drops and all that sort of stuff. And that is what this video is today. It's a first impressions of the Nothing Phone 3. I will have a month later review in a month's time, so make sure you hit the subscribe button not to miss that. But today, this is purely what I think about this off the bat, and I think I know what's going on. Let's start with pricing because that will get you talking in the comments. These are the two pricing options for the Nothing Phone 3. By comparison, the Nothing Phone 2 launched at $579. So this is quite a big jump in terms of Nothing's pricing. However, they're making it very clear that this is now a flagship, so we should expect higher pricing. And in fairness, it's not as expensive as the iPhone flagship or the Samsung flagship. It does, however, compete directly with the OnePlus 13, which is a fantastic phone, the Google Pixel 9, which is a fantastic phone, and the regular Galaxy S25, which again is a fantastic phone. And there are some spec differences between those and this. The design of the Nothing Phone 3, I really like. Now again, this will get you talking in the comments. I know people have talked about the arrangement of the camera module because this one is slightly off to the left-hand side. Who cares? I really don't care. I just love what Nothing does with phones. This is the Nothing Phone 1. This is where it all started. It's got the Glyph flashy lights, which I'll come on to in a moment, but you've got this kind of translucent backing. They carried that over, obviously, into the Nothing Phone 2, the Nothing Phone 3A, their new headphones. This is what Nothing does. They have this kind of very interesting take on design. Colour-wise, we get white and black. No other colours. It would be nice to have something a bit more funky, but these are flagships, and flagship phones have fairly normal colours like this. Out of the two, I think I prefer the black, but it does smudge a bit more than the white, so just bear that in mind if you're trying to choose between the two of them. In terms of the differences from or between the Nothing Phone 2 and the Nothing Phone 3, the key things really are IP68 water resistance. This had IP54. The display is significantly brighter on the Nothing Phone 3. It's got 4,500 nits peak brightness, and the Nothing Phone 2 had 1,600 nits, so that's very different. I think the display size is identical. It's basically the same size roughly as a iPhone 16 Pro Max if you want to compare it against anything. It does have the essential key, which is this thing here. I'm not going to talk too much about the essential key and the essential space in this review because I think that needs to wait for my month later review. I have covered it in the review of the 3A, which we'll link to at the end of this video. The only thing I will say about the essential key is that I wish they'd put it above the power button because I keep hitting that rather than the power button. It's a small gripe, but it is a bit irritating. That aside though, Nothing, please keep doing this. However, they've made one massive change. Nothing has a history of adding lights to the back of its phones. They call it the Glyph interface. It's this series of LEDs that flash when you get a new call or a notification. And some people think it's gimmicky. Some people love it and say it's playful and, why not? What you can't deny is the fact that it sets Nothing phones apart from the competition. However, on the Phone 3, we don't have a Glyph interface. Instead, we have the Glyph Matrix, which is, if you point at it properly, this thing here. It's teamed with this haptic button, which if I press, cycles through different things. So we've got spin the bottle, which I can press and hold, and it does that. Do it again, and we get the battery percentage. I think there's a developer API for, or some kind of thing for this where you could design your own little Glyph Matrix things as well. Nothing says that this collection of 489 LEDs is designed to help people cut through digital clutter, reduce screen time, and make the phone feel more alive and expressive. Now, I've had this, as I mentioned at the start of this video, for a week, so I haven't got a rounded opinion on the Glyph Matrix. However, I will say that it's a nice change, I think, from the Glyph interface, because the Glyph interface was just lights. They just flashed and you didn't always know what that meant. This is a mini display, okay? It's a very low res display because it's just a bunch of LEDs, but it's interesting. And trust me, having done this job for 5 years and reviewed so many phones that are just smartphones, they're great, they're really good. It's very hard to buy a rubbish smartphone these days, but a lot of them are just really boring. That isn't, it's fun. You can play spin the bottle with your mates. I won't ever do that, but you can do that with your phone on the back. Does it answer the problem? Does it solve the problem rather of having too much screen time? I don't think so. I mean, you can't do your email on that, can you? Or, reply to text messages and stuff. But let's just give them the recognition they deserve for making phones interesting. Performance. Now, the Nothing Phone 3 has the Snapdragon 8S Gen 4, which isn't the 8 Elite, no, and you do get the 8 Elite in the similarly priced OnePlus 13. However, I've done some research and I've concluded it doesn't matter for most people because the main differences are the chip in here has a 4nm process versus the 3nm process in the 8 Elite. It's got fewer and slightly different cores. It's got less maximum RAM. I think you can have 24 gig of RAM in the 8 Elite, although are there any phones that have that? I don't know. It maxes out at 16 gig on here. It's got a lesser GPU. Does any of that stuff matter? It just doesn't. I'm sorry. I know people will disagree with that. Most of the people who buy this phone don't need the extra stuff that you get with the 8 Elite. And I think it's a smart choice by Nothing for going for that 8S Gen 4. Clearly that has helped them get the price down and it just works. It's still very quick. We are at a point, I keep saying this in smartphone reviews, where you can't buy a slow phone. Certainly for $799, $899, it's going to be fast for both gaming and productivity stuff, but also just general use. It's a very quick phone. And Nothing OS is brilliant. I think it's my favorite iteration of Android. I genuinely think that. It's just so interesting. It's not bloated. There's only Nothing's own apps installed. It doesn't put Booking.com on there, for instance, which is one of my pet hates. I don't want the Booking.com app. I don't want the Facebook app. Just give me the bare bones. And Nothing seems to get that. And they also have their funky, icon pack if you want to go down that route. So overall, performance-wise, it's fantastic. And it's a pretty big upgrade over the Nothing Phone 2. So 60% better AI performance, obviously, 36% better CPU and 88% GPU gains. So it's a much quicker phone and a much more capable phone than the Nothing Phone 2, which matters. It means there's been lots of progression. That's good. Nothing has made some very big changes with the camera system. We have a triple 50 megapixel camera setup on the back, ultra wide, regular wide, and a periscope lens, which we didn't have on the Nothing Phone 2. And that gives us a 6x zoom in sensor and 60x digital zoom. The Phone 2 only went up to 10 times. So that is quite a big difference. And even though I've only had this for a week, you can tell just having that extra reach is a big deal. In terms of image quality, again, I've not done that much with the phone in terms of taking photos. I've mainly taken photos of my puppy, my son, my puppy, my puppy, my puppy.
10 years later.
And being a dad and now again a dog dad, I am very quickly impressed by cameras that capture the moment, and the Nothing Phone 3 has taken my favourite ever picture of my puppy. That's enough for me. I think that was a portrait, but it was incredibly low light. Trust me, it's nowhere near as bright as it seems on that image there. Look at that photo. I need more time with it, but I've always liked Nothing Phone photos. They're very pixelish. I'm a massive fan of the pixel when it comes to photography. I will be taking a lot more photos with this over the coming weeks. So again, make sure you hit subscribe not to miss that month later review. It shoots 4K 60 maximum in terms of video, which is enough for anyone, I think. Does anyone do that really high frame rate stuff that you can do on the iPhone 16 Pro Max? I don't think so. But the initial impressions of the camera system are very, very good. Mainly because of that puppy photo. But if you've got a dog, you know what I'm talking about. Before I reveal my conclusion, I've just realised that I didn't talk about the battery earlier. It's really good. It's better than the Nothing Phone 2 because it's bigger, it's got faster charging, we'll put the specs down here, and you'll get 2 days out of it, no problem at all. And just like every Android phone these days, the standby time is almost comical. It just goes on forever, it seems. Now, my conclusion about the Nothing Phone 3 after this initial period of testing is that it is very, very, very good, and it deserves that flagship title. It really does. It's well priced. I think the spec choices by Nothing are very smart, and that Glyph Matrix thing, I think it doesn't matter if it's a gimmick. It doesn't get in the way. If you're never going to use it, you won't even know it's there. However, if you do fancy using it, and I think we will start to see some interesting stuff from Nothing in the future, and I think the community will probably get involved as well and have their own little, their own say in how this thing is used. It's just interesting. Nothing is continuing to make interesting tech. tech. And as a tech reviewer, that is wonderful. But the great news is the fact that it isn't all show. Behind that marketing and the Glyph Matrix lies a very, very good Android phone, which should be on your list for this year. Now it's over to you guys. Get involved in the comments with your thoughts on the Nothing Phone 3. Hit subscribe not to miss that 1 month later review. And, well, I'll see you then.